I'm Ruby Harper, 45, and I've built my life on my own terms. As president of Harper Innovations, a tech consulting firm in Seattle, I've turned my childhood grit into a multi-million-dollar business. Growing up in Tacoma, where Mum worked long shifts as a nurse and Dad fixed cars until his hands were black, I learned early that nothing comes free. Losing my brother Jake at 16 in a car accident broke me, but it also lit a fire. I earned a scholarship to Stanford, coded my way through sleepless nights, and started my company with 2 friends in a cramped apartment. Now, we're the go-to firm for tech giants, but I've kept my roots, hiking the Cascades, blasting indie rock, and steering clear of anything fake, especially in love. That's why the wine splashing my face hit so hard. I stood in the Brooks' opulent Portland dining room, my navy blazer dripping, as Diane Brooks sneered, "There, I've washed off that small town stench for you." Her words cut deeper than the Merlot stinging my eyes. I'd come to announce my engagement to her son Nathan, 42, thinking I'd found someone real. But Nathan's laugh, sharp, mocking, echoed through the room, shredding any hope I had. My carefully chosen outfit, my pinned-up hair, all meant to honour this moment, felt like a costume for a fool. I wiped my face, heart-pounding, and met Diane's smug gaze. Nathan stood beside her, still chuckling, oblivious to the storm in my chest. Richard Brooks, Nathan's father, and CEO of Brooks Manufacturing, our key supplier, looked horrified but silent. I'd hidden my role as president of Harper Innovations from Nathan and Diane to see their true selves. Now, I saw them clearly. "I am terminating our contract with Brooks Manufacturing," I said, voice steady despite the ache. Diane's smirk vanished, Nathan's jaw dropped, Richard's eyes widened, knowing my company's contracts kept his business afloat. "You can't," Diane started, but I cut her off. "I am Ruby Harper, president of Harper Innovations. We're your biggest client, or we were." The room froze, and I felt a surge of clarity. This wasn't just about wine or words. It was about respect, trust, and the life I'd built. I turned and walked out, leaving their shocked whispers behind, my heels clicking on their polished floor. I never planned on marriage. My life in Seattle is full, leading Harper Innovations, hiking Mount Rainier on weekends, and unwinding with a good playlist or a book. My parents, still in Tacoma, taught me to value hard work over fairy tales. Mum's endless hospital shifts and Dad's grease-stained hands showed me what it takes to survive. Jake's death at 16 cemented it. Life's too short for anything less than real. I poured my grief into code, built my company from nothing, and found peace in my independence. Romance? It always felt like a distraction. So when Richard Brooks, CEO of Brooks Manufacturing, called last spring, I was skeptical. "Ruby, I'd like you to meet someone," he said, his voice warm but insistent. Richard and I had worked together for a decade, my firm's tech solutions propping up his struggling company. I trusted his judgment, but a setup? I hesitated. "He's special," Richard pressed. Curiosity won, and I agreed to meet his son, Nathan, 42, over coffee. Nathan was charming, with a dimpled smile and easy conversation about Portland's craft beer scene. He was polite, attentive, and seemed genuine, though I caught a hint of something, maybe immaturity, in his quick glances at his phone. He was the youngest of 3, with 2 older sisters, and had come close to marriage twice but stayed single. I liked his honesty about it, and when he asked to see me again, I said yes. For the first time, I wondered if love could fit into my life. A month later, Nathan proposed. It was sudden, over dinner at a cozy bistro, his eyes nervous but hopeful. "I think we could be great together, Ruby," he said. My heart raced, not from romance, but from the leap I was considering. I'd hidden my role as president from him, wanting to be seen as Ruby, not a title. Maybe that was my mistake. I said yes, thinking we could grow together. but a quiet unease lingered, like a shadow I couldn't quite name. Nathan's charm carried us through our first few dates, but cracks started to show. On our third date, at a trendy Seattle gastro pub, he wore a casual denim jacket, looking younger than his 42 years. I traded my usual blazer for jeans, hoping to match his vibe. We laughed like teenagers, but his comments began to sting. "You must love this place," he said, smirking over his craft beer. "Bet it's fancier than you're used to." I forced a smile. He didn't know I'd been here last week with clients, closing a deal over the same truffle fries he was raving about. I let it slide, not wanting to embarrass him, but the pattern grew. At a waterfront cafe, he noticed my leather satchel, a custom piece from a local artisan, sleek and practical. "You should get a real bag, something with a logo," he said, his tone half joking, half superior. I bit my tongue. The bag cost more than his watch, a mid-range piece he'd proudly shown off, assuming I'd be impressed. "It's nice," I said, deflecting, but his assumption that I couldn't afford better gnawed at me. I started noticing his reliance on his mother, Diane. "Mum says you've got a good heart, but you need to step up your style," he'd say, laughing. Calling her mum at 42 felt odd, like he was still tethered to her approval. I brushed it off, reminding myself of his kindness, like when he'd surprised me with my favourite coffee. But the unease grew. Was I ignoring red flags for the sake of hope? I'd built Harper Innovations by trusting my gut, yet here I was, second-guessing it. Still, I told myself 3 dates weren't enough to judge. I'd give it time, hoping Nathan's heart would outweigh his flaws. By our 5th date, I was wrestling with doubts about Nathan. We met at a bustling hotel buffet in Portland, the kind of place I'd visit for client meetings, not romance. Nathan piled his plate high, steak, shrimp, pasta, more than anyone could eat. "You sure you can finish that?" I teased lightly, thinking of the waste. He laughed too loud. "Ruby, don't sound so broke. It's fine to toss what I don't eat." My stomach twisted. It wasn't about money. It was the disregard, the assumption I was small-minded for caring. His words echoed Diane's influence. "Mum says you might be after my family's money," he blurted, poking at his pasta. "I didn't mean to upset you." The word mum again, like a child's plea, made my skin crawl. I'd spent years building Harper Innovations, outpacing companies like his father's, yet he saw me as a gold digger. I swallowed my anger, not wanting to ruin the night. "Let's just enjoy dinner," I said, voice tight. Driving me home, Nathan grabbed my hand as I stepped out. "Ruby, marry me, not now, but soon. I'll wait." His eyes were earnest, and despite everything, my heart softened. I'd seen glimpses of his good side, his thoughtfulness, his apologies. Maybe he could grow. "Let's work on this together," I said, tears pricking my eyes. "We've both got flaws, but we can talk them out." He nodded, relieved, and I felt a flicker of hope. I wanted to believe in us, in the idea that love could smooth out the rough edges. But deep down, I wondered if I was trying to fix something already broken. Nathan's proposal lingered in my mind, but his next words shattered the moment. "You'll need to quit your job, Ruby," he said, grinning like it was obvious. "Mum says a wife's place is at home, learning from her." My blood boiled. I'd built Harper Innovations from nothing, my pride and joy, and he thought I'd toss it aside? "If that's your attitude, Nathan, there's no wedding," I snapped, slamming his car door. I stormed into my Seattle apartment, heart racing with anger and disbelief. Over the weekend, Nathan texted relentlessly, begging to meet. Against my better judgment, I agreed. He was waiting at our usual coffee shop, looking like a scolded kid. "I'm sorry, Ruby," he said, voice low. "My buddies said I should set rules early. They were wrong, and I was an idiot. His sincerity chipped away at my resolve. I remembered my parents' advice. Love takes work. Don't pull that again, I said, half smiling. We're engaged, so let's act like partners. He brightened, promising to do better. A month later, we planned to meet his family to announce our engagement. I was nervous, but hopeful. Richard had always been kind, and I assumed Diane, his wife, would be too. Nathan seemed off that morning, fidgeting as we drove to their Portland estate. About Mom, he started, then trailed off. I braced myself, expecting typical mother-in-law quirks. I'd heard Diane was particular, but I believed honesty would win her over. Clutching my custom satchel, I stepped into their home, ready to build a future. I had no idea how wrong I was. The Brooks dining room gleamed with wealth, crystal chandelier, mahogany table, but the air felt heavy. I smiled at Diane, offering a handshake, but she smirked, clutching a glass of Merlot. Before I could speak, she flung the wine in my face, the cold liquid burning my eyes. There, I've washed off that small town stench, she sneered. Nathan burst out laughing, clutching his sides. My heart sank, betrayal cutting deeper than the wine dripping down my chin. Richard gasped. Diane, what the hell? But stayed frozen. I wiped my face, shaking but resolute. All those months hiding my role as president of Harper Innovations had been to see Nathan's true self. Now, I saw it, cruel and spineless. I'm done, I said, voice steady. The engagement's off, and so is our contract with Brooks Manufacturing. Diane's smirk faltered. Nathan's laughter stopped cold. Richard's face paled, knowing my company's contracts were his lifeline. You can't do that, Diane snapped. I stepped forward, locking eyes with her. I'm Ruby Harper, president of Harper Innovations. We're your biggest client, 40% of your revenue. Or we were. Nathan's jaw dropped. He worked at his dad's company and knew my firm's name. Diane's hand shook, her glass clinking against the table. Richard stammered, Ruby, please, let's talk. But I was done. The hurt in my chest fueled my resolve. I'd built my life on authenticity, and I wouldn't let their mockery define me. I turned, wine-soaked but unbroken, and walked out, leaving their stunned silence behind. Back in my Seattle office, I faced Richard's desperate emails, but my decision was final. Harper Innovations had propped up Brooks Manufacturing for years, and I laid it bare. Your company's outdated practices are tanking, I told Richard over a tense call. High turnover, inefficient production. Our board was already eyeing new partners. My voice was calm, but my heart ached. I'd trusted Nathan, hoped for a partner, only to find a man-child echoing his mother's cruelty. Diane's outburst wasn't just personal. It was a symptom of their family's dysfunction. Richard admitted their company was bleeding, hoping my engagement to Nathan would secure our partnership. I misjudged, he said, voice cracking. Nathan, silent on the call, hadn't known my role, but he'd seen our company logo on his father's contracts. His ignorance was no excuse for his laughter. Diane, meanwhile, raged in the background, calling me conniving. I hung up, her voice echoing in my mind. I thought of my parents in Tacoma, how they'd cheer my strength but mourn my hurt. Losing Jake taught me to guard my heart. Yet I'd let Nathan in, only to be humiliated. The business fallout wasn't revenge, it was survival. Harper Innovations couldn't afford ties to a sinking ship, and I couldn't afford a life with someone who saw me as less. As I stared out at the Seattle skyline, my resolve hardened. I'd built this life from grief and grit, and no one, not Diane, not Nathan, would take that from me. 5 months after I walked out, Brooks Manufacturing crumbled under its own weight. Richard resigned, taking the fall for years of mismanagement. A new CEO, a sharp former VP, overhauled operations, cutting family ties and launching innovative products. Industry buzz praised the turnaround, and I considered resuming contracts. But trust was broken. My heart, though, was healing. Diane and Nathan's world imploded. Richard divorced Diane, splitting his assets, but leaving her to fend for herself. She and Nathan moved to a cramped Portland apartment, their lavish lifestyle gone. Nathan, unemployed and clueless at 42, leaned on Diane, who grew bitter under the strain. Rumours swirled of their constant fights, and eventually Diane left him, retreating to a cheap rental, alone and friendless. Her once boastful socialite charm had pushed everyone away. Nathan landed back with Richard, who was trying to teach him basic skills: cooking, budgeting, things he'd never learned under Diane's coddling. I heard Nathan struggled, often breaking down, unmoored without his mother's safety net. Part of me pitied him, but the memory of his laughter as wine dripped down my face kept my sympathy in check. Their downfall wasn't my doing, it was the consequence of their arrogance. In Seattle, I focused on Harper Innovations, our growth steady, my team loyal. The sting of betrayal lingered, but I felt lighter, like I'd shed a weight I hadn't known I was carrying. 3 years later, I'm thriving. Harper Innovations is stronger than ever, our stock climbing as we land major clients. I've traded late-night coding for early morning rock climbing, my arms toned from scaling Washington's cliffs. I volunteer at a Tacoma community center, teaching kids from families like mine how to code, their eager faces reminding me of my own hunger to rise above. My parents, proud but never pushy, support my choice to stay single. "You're enough," Mum says, and I believe her. I used to think love might complete me, but Nathan's betrayal showed me otherwise. His laughter, Diane's wine throwing, they exposed a truth I'd ignored. I don't need someone else to define my worth. My Seattle apartment, with its view of Puget Sound and shelves of well-worn books, feels like home. I blast indie rock, cook for one, and find joy in small things. A sunrise hike, a perfect line of code, a kid's grin when their program runs. Sometimes I wonder about love, but not now. Maybe in my 60s, when I've lived more of my story, I'll risk my heart again. For now, happiness is mine to build. I think of Jake, how his loss shaped me, and I feel him in every step I take. My life isn't perfect, but it's mine, hard-won, authentic, and full of possibility. Reflecting on that wine-soaked night, I see it as a turning point. I walked into the Brooks home hoping for family, but I left with something better: clarity. Nathan and Diane's cruelty stripped away my doubts, revealing the strength I'd built over years. Losing Jake at 16 taught me to fight for my place in the world, and I did, building Harper Innovations from a dream into a powerhouse. That night, I reclaimed my voice, my worth, and my future. I don't hate Nathan or Diane. Their lives unraveled because they valued status over substance, a lesson I'll never forget. Richard, now retired, sent me a letter last year, apologising again. He's raising Nathan like the son he never truly knew, and I hope they find peace. As for me, I'm not looking back. My days are filled with purpose, leading my team, climbing cliffs, mentoring kids. Love might find me one day, but it won't define me. I've learned happiness is a choice, one I make every day, rooted in the life I've built and the person I've become. To everyone who's followed my story, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, strength, and rebirth. If my journey moved you, hit subscribe and join us, where every challenge shapes a story of resilience, heart, and new beginnings. Keep forging your own path, and I'll meet you at the summit.